Hello and welcome to Labour Lens. I am Sharon Ijason. On this week edition of the program, we'll be focusing on the issue of oil theft in the country. We also have news stories for you. We will be right back.
After its advocacy to the National Assembly in February on autonomy for all tiers of government, NLC is taking a step further. State governors and speakers of houses of assembly are scheduled to meet here to ratify their positions on the 44 bills sent to the state parliaments by the National Assembly. But the NLC mobilized its relevant affiliate unions to the venue to further push its demand for the passage of the bills, critical to the survival of its members. It is not the first time the National Assembly will pass autonomy for the tiers of government. NLC says it is determined this time to mount pressure on the states to toe the path of the National Assembly. NLC President Ayuba Waba says the current wave of insecurity across the country is a pointer to the failure of the local government system.
It's not only about siphoning their funds, it's also about having a credible election at the local government system, because that is why true democracy is being practiced. If we actually destroy democracy at the local government level, then you are sure that what you are going to have at the center will be a mirage.
Other labor leaders added their voices.
Those who benefit from a corrupt system will not desire a change, but change is the only thing that is constant and relevant. It is time to change the narratives. It is time to make Nigeria better. It is time to give hope to the rural dwellers.
A child that says his mother will not sleep, definitely he will not taste sleep.
The country is not settled today because the judiciary is not settled. Where can you carry your words to go and establish a factory in another man's country, and you know that that country is not a settled country?
The workers said they will follow up the governors and the speakers should they decide to change the venue of their meeting. At least 24 of the 36 states should vote in favor of the bills for them to become law.
These protesters, led by the NLC president, say on autonomy they stand, and all they ask from the governors and the speakers of the state houses of assembly is that they listen to the voices of the people.
The Nigeria Employers Consultative Association officially launched a survey report tagged Next Normal, the Changing Workplace in Africa Research. According to the president of NECA, the campaign is essential for a friendly business environment in Nigeria using the support of evidence-based advocacy.
The changes created by COVID-19 are both broad and pervasive. They will affect work evolution post-pandemic. This will usher us to the end of the beginning, to paraphrase Winston Churchill. In sorting through the legacy of COVID-19, observers identified changes ranging from the greater use of remote work and a permanent reduction in business travel to the accelerated adoption of digital technology as the most important change spurred by the pandemic.
These innovations would serve for the sustainability of enterprise. It will serve for the benefit to workers and growth of our nation. It is our hope at NECA that the recommendations of the Next Normal report are further explored and fully implemented by the stakeholders for the benefit of our country.
Vanessa Fala, director of the International Labour Organization, Country Office for Nigeria, Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, says the world of work is undergoing permanent changes, which implies new challenges from the global economy. According to the report, one of the major casualties of the pandemic, beyond the loss of human lives, was the loss of jobs, negative impact on employers and businesses. Globally, business operation was disrupted, which brought about changes in work systems as it relates to human resource management, workplace structure, and mode of work.
Opportune time at the right time. We're still in a global pandemic. We are not out of COVID. So the report is really a very good opportunity to understand how we continue to reposition our enterprises and respond adequately to this COVID-19 pandemic. Every NECA member that contributed to the information that enable us to put together this report. I want to thank the leadership of NECA. I want to thank the president and the acting DG for leading in this regard. And I'm sure that we will have a very nice evidence-based document to inform NECA's advocacy initiatives going forward.
It's the 5th Quadrennial Delegates Conference of the National Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers NUPENG in Asaba, Delta State. At the conference, the president of NUPENG, William Saporea, called on the monitoring agencies to put a stop to casualization and outsourcing of workers in the oil and gas industry. He described the act as modern-day slavery.
I wish to reiterate once again that the level of casualization, contract staffing under the guise of outsourcing has returned to slave employment across the oil and gas industry. A situation where core activities of oil and gas operations in companies are carried out by casual workers is gradually spelling doom for the industry, if not checked, as high productivity cannot be expected from those handling critical operations are treated like slaves and are ill-motivated. We hereby call on relevant monitoring agencies to rise up to the occasion by ensuring that global standards are maintained on human capital issues across the industry.
It is important that the operators in the oil and gas sector should acquaint themselves with the major challenges of trade union leadership, as this will avail employers and employees the opportunity to understand the issues involved more closely, thereby leading to a more cordial working environment. The Delta State government takes issues relating to the oil and gas industry very seriously because it remains the mainstay of our national economy.
Speaking on the theme of the conference, Just Energy Transition for Oil and Gas Workers' Social Welfare and Security, Professor Chukwumerije Okereke stressed that global warming is real and has much impact on the sector.
We have calculated that human activities, what we call anthropogenic activities, have already caused 1.2 degrees of global warming above pre-industrial level. We find that if the global temperature continues to increase at the current rate, global warming is likely to reach 1.5 degrees by 2030, 2052.
Other participants spoke on the essence of the theme of discussion.
When there was this issue of dispute whether to allow workers to be unionized or not, he said every employer in America must allow workers to be unionized. Why? He said workers are the strongest pillar of democracy. And therefore we must understand this, that casualization is evil and outsourcing of services is evil. It's modern day slavery.
I stand with my NUPENG president shoulder to shoulder to combat the issues of casualization, because it is also an issue that is affecting this industry, where some people that work in oil and gas, who are even doing more vital job than the one they refer to as a permanent staff, are being denigrated, where they are being subjugated, and where they are being pushed down and paid peanuts for the labor and for their sweat they put in on a daily basis. I wish to assure you, NUPENG, that Pengasan will stand with you to fight the issue of casualization.
M. Saporea was re-elected national president of NUPENG to serve for another 4 years. While the need for decent work to be promoted at all strata is being promoted at this conference held in Delta State, Asaba, for oil and gas workers, a just energy transition is where highly skilled workers in the carbon industries are being retained for the greener industries, rather than being made redundant.
80% of our budget on borrowing more than 80% of the debt, we borrow to pay debt, and we are losing heavily the resources we rely on, which is revenue from crude oil. And many of the reports we've had so far says between 85 to 95% of Nigerian crude oil is lost to oil thieves. And every attempt to use a combined team of security operatives, every attempt has not worked. Reason, those you send there, also find it lucrative to be part of the show. And we continue this way. You saw the news. The president has asked the National Assembly for 4 trillion to do subsidy. So that's going to further worsen the problem.
3% unemployment in Nigeria, which some people claim is even 46%, is going to get a lot more compounded. But like I was telling somebody just a few moments ago, that when our president, a former, or rather, I think once you're a general, you are always a general in the army, who was a military head of state, who is now the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, who is also the chairman of the police council, who is also the chairman of the security council, who is also the minister of petroleum resources, who appoints himself as minister of petroleum resources, should know if they are stealing money or not. I mean, if they are stealing or diverting the petroleum resources or not. And I believe he knows. What is he doing about it? It's unfortunate that we are dealing with this. We need to be, and the president, who is the head of the Nigerian family, should please set a good precedent for all of us to follow. The Nigerian state is collapsing, and I'm afraid that if and when things go bad, which I don't pray for, if things go bad, it is these elites that will be the victims. So they had better do something, even in their own enlightened self-interest.
On the profile interview segment this week, I will be speaking with Honorable Peter Akpatason, who was the former president of NUPENG and also doubles up now as the deputy majority leader at the National House of Assembly. It brings us up to speed on the ways that the National Assembly are trying to work towards the challenges that workers have faced in the oil and gas sector. We will be right back. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
A lot has happened since our last conversation, and with your position at the National House of Assembly, and one of the top issues is the issue of vandalism and the issue of oil theft. As an experienced labor leader and as someone that has worked in the oil and gas industry, what would be your reaction towards this?
Well, vandalism, oil theft in general is a major problem in this country. Vandalism is just a micro aspect of oil theft because the nation loses oil in so many ways, not just through vandalism. We lose oil through deliberate manipulation of the accounting processes, in which case the records that eventually come out is different from what actually was produced or exported and all of that. That is the biggest, source of, crude losses to this country. Yes, it is a big problem, but I think that if we are sincere about the securing of the pipelines, it is possible to reduce vandalism very drastically. But at the moment, I'm not seeing that seriousness because the pipeline routes are very clear. All of them are known to the security agencies. Drones are being acquired from time to time with which they can actually monitor the routes and detect where vandalism is likely to take place in a proactive way, because when you see movements around, unusual movements around the pipeline, you know that something is likely to happen, and they can do a quick, interception of that, case. The real problem that we have with security in general, as well as the specific case of security of the pipelines and depots, is that intels are not acted upon early enough to be able to intercept, cases. Oftentimes, they don't even come early enough. Imagine a situation where a military formation can be attacked by bandits. It is expected that they should have sufficient information to prevent such, from happening. But if it can happen to them, then you know that the case of a pipeline is just a mere small case. So the parliament will continue to make efforts to ensure that whatever that is necessary, to help the security agencies to prevent, vandalism from happening is done. But that is how far that the parliament can go. After making available, whatever that they need, it is the responsibility of the executors to make sure that actions are taken to prevent or to quickly arrest, any situation around the pipeline.
So what do you think would be the cost implication of this oil theft? Because from reliable sources, we gathered that we have a lot of investors that have left the shores of this country because of this development. Can you peg a figure on the amount of money that you think Nigeria is losing towards vandals?
Very difficult for anybody to put, actual figures to the kind of vandalism that is happening in the country and oil theft in general. I say this because you can only estimate what, what the nation loses to vandalism. You cannot actually tell how much crude was stolen in each of the instances of vandalism, in the country. It's practically very difficult to do so. But it is obviously a very, very high figure. High in the sense that at some point, the percentage of the crude that is lost to vandalism is way above 50%. Yeah, so, if you lose more than 50% of what, you transport through the pipeline, definitely, you know what that means. It's such a huge figure. We can only put percentages to it just now because the facts are not there to actually determine how much in specific term we have lost as a nation.
Electricity is one core element that every Nigerian worker or citizen would need to survive. And recently, Nigerians have been experiencing epileptic power supply, increase without announcement, labor not being consulted. How would you react to this? What do you think can be done? You are the National Assembly. What bill needs to be passed for us to enjoy electricity, which in turn might as well affect the economy of the country?
Well, I think the first thing a nation should do to address the issue of power shortage is to have a strategic plan for increasing the power generation capacity of the nation, as well as the distributive channels, and then secure those channels to make sure that there are no interruptions, man-made interruptions. But unfortunately, I'm not sure that there's such clear master plan for this country just now. Some time ago, we were given the impression that the solution to power supply in this country is the privatization of various sectors of the supply chain. And unfortunately, I want to believe very strongly that that privatization was not properly done. As usual, the sellers were the buyers, and they ended up selling to themselves, forced the government to raise funds for them to fund their businesses, and yet Nigerians are not getting the benefit of the privatization as well as the investments that the government made. So it's a very serious situation. One would expect that just now, government should try to quadruple, the amount of power that we are able to generate on a daily basis, and to invest more, whether through public-private, combination, or through any means that it can be done to increase the distribution channels, the capacity to distribute power to the various sources, and get more serious about protecting the assets of the various operators along the supply chain. What happened recently, that led to the crash of the national grid, is a clear example of unpreparedness of the operators, the actors that, are charged with the responsibility of protecting, those assets. If there is vandalism, and that leads to maybe shutting down of an aspect of the national grid, or the entire national grid comes down, it causes very serious damage to the entire supply chain, and Nigerians are made to suffer for it. So apart from producing, apart from ensuring effective distribution, it's also very important to to make sure that they protect the assets from vandalism and from degradation, as a result of unwholesome activity of criminals.
Okay, so very quickly, the war between Russia and Ukraine is still much ongoing, and of course it's affecting oil and gas industry, like we all are saying. And Nigeria, even though we are richly blessed with this product, we still import these products into the country, and it's affecting our day-to-day activities, which brings to reminder the call from different stakeholders, the need for local refineries to work optimally. Can you bring us up to speed on what can be done? What has the National Assembly tried to do to ensure that we have our local refineries work?
Yes, we actually invited various stakeholders to have a chat on this issue. And we were made to understand that at the moment, government's direction in terms of solving the problem of supply is towards the Dangote refinery. I find that funny, actually, because it is strange for a nation to think that they can hinge all their, the capacity to supply energy to the local economy on a big monopoly like the Dangote business. I don't say that as something safe for a country, but we actually don't know when that is even going to come on stream. So practically, that is the situation on ground. I'm not seeing any major plan outside that. We are also told, however, that the refineries, the contracts for the revamping of the refinery, have been put in place, and they believe that because they have engaged the original builders of these refineries, the situation will be different from what used to happen in the past. That is to say, we are not going to have a repeat of the excuses of having to fix refinery, and in no time, you discover that those refineries are not working.
Finally, the issue, since our last conversation, I know we spoke very much about the PIA Act and how it would affect workers and how it would affect Nigerians. But very quickly, as a journalist, I'm also very concerned about the increase in casualization and outsourcing of workers. As the former president of NUPENG, as the deputy majority leader at the National Assembly, what has been done to tackle the issue of unemployment, of outsourcing and casualization of workers? Because the way it's being practiced in Nigeria is so appalling. Recently, a man died in the line of duty while in active service after spending 15 years. No condolence visits, no gratuity, nothing. And for how long can Nigerian workers continue to work like slaves in their fatherland?
The solution to casualization and unhealthy labor practices in the economy will come from, multiple players in the sector. Government must be involved. The employers themselves, whether acting individually or under the aegis of NECA, must agree that we have to begin to treat workers like humans and give them their dues. A situation in which you make laws and laws are being circumvented with impunity. And oftentimes, most of the people who are victims cannot put themselves together to use the judiciary at that point to fight their causes. See that it becomes very difficult, to check the abuses. Yeah? So the solution lies in every party being prepared to play their own role. Lawmakers must continue to review the laws, but I think that we have quite a number of laws that prohibit those malpractices in the system. But unfortunately, I'm not sure that even the workers themselves are often prepared, to take advantage of the existence of such laws. They will rather, rely on, threat of strike action and actual strike action to resolve the issues. And when they are overstretched by the richer and more powerful management, they don't often resort to litigation. They don't go to court. I think that is an issue we should begin to look at how to challenge some of these practices in court. If one or two employers are jailed for labor, law abuses, I'm sure that others will sit up. But at the moment, we don't have such instances.
Thank you very much for your time.
It's a pleasure.
And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.